unexpected, and if symptoms persist, see your healthcare professional. For your nearest stockist, visit chemistsown.com.au.
Did you know that there are over 300,000 South Australians of all ages currently suffering from arthritis? Arthritis SA is there to support them through research, advocacy, self-management courses, telephone advisory services, and a full range of up-to-date information and resources. Arthritis SA needs your help to continue its vital work on this chronic condition. To make a donation or for more information, visit arthritissa.org.au. That's arthritissa.org.au.
Patrick, good morning. Kurt Tippett walks. What's the reaction?
I must say it was a pretty disappointing day yesterday.
Patrick, Tim Ginnivan, if he goes to a different club other than the Gold Coast, does that change anybody's opinions?
Yeah, I think it might. I would say there'd be a few disappointed players in the club.
The 5AA Brekkie Show.
You know, moving home is one thing, moving to another club, another environment is certainly another.
Weekday mornings from 6 on 1395, Adelaide's 5AA. Interactive radio. Call 8223 0000. Sean Perry.
It was so interactive, we kept being interactive right through the ad break. So it's just about being interactive, that's all. Enjoy it. Go on, live it, love it. Grab it like a big juicy piece of fruit and bite on into it. That's how interactive we are. Now we're going all the way over to New Zealand and we're going to talk to Selwyn Manning. How are you, Selwyn?
Very good, Sean. How are things over there in South Australia?
Well, you know, the sun's coming up over another day, so that's a very good start.
Yep. It's always promising, isn't it, when the sun continues to rise?
Exactly. And how are things over there in New Zealand? What's going on?
Well, there's a storm of sorts in the political arena. The last 2 weeks, I haven't been speaking to your wonderful listeners, but in those 2 weeks we've seen the national-led government over here in New Zealand rocked by revelations that one of New Zealand's spy agencies, the Government Communications Security Bureau, commonly known over here as the GCSB, conducted illegal surveillance on this internet tycoon mega upload boss Kim.com. Now, Kim.com was arrested in Auckland, Sean, back in Auckland early this year after the FBI in the United States requested New Zealand's police and security agencies to apprehend him on money laundering and copyright privacy charges. The FBI then sought to extradite .com and members of his team to the United States to face charges, but the extradition proceedings have fallen over almost at every juncture as it's gone through the courts, and he remains here in New Zealand. But getting back to the main point, Sean, is last week the Prime Minister revealed to the public that his agency, the GCSB, had been asked by the police to spy on .com. It did so even though it's unlawful for it to spy on New Zealand citizens or permanent residents. Now, at the time, .com was a permanent resident and he remains a permanent resident in New Zealand. The Prime Minister says a couple of weeks ago that he was made aware that his agency, the GCSB, was illegally spying and had illegally spied. That statement by the Prime Minister on the count that this is the first he heard of it has been tested ever since, Sean, and it looks like it's unravelling day by day.
That's bizarre. I mean, what happens if they do find that what they were doing is illegal? Do they arrest themselves?
Well, this is the big thing. It's already been established that it was illegal surveillance. The GCSB head has told the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister has stood up and grandiosely kind of swept his arm across the room and said to the public in New Zealand, illegal surveillance did go on. Apparently it was the New Zealand police that asked the GCSB to spy on Kim.com and its people. And they say that they were not sure or didn't believe that it was illegal at the time, but found that it was later. Now, this is one of the very most secret parts of the New Zealand police, that it was investigating this at the behest of the FBI, and it didn't know the basic laws on surveillance here in New Zealand. The whole thing politically has caused the parliamentary party leaders right across the New Zealand Parliament to be calling for independent inquiries, and the Prime Minister relented and sent in the what they refer to as the Inspector General of Security and Intelligence, a former High Court judge called Justice Naser. He came back after a few days last week and said, yes, the illegal spying did take place, and we need to look at this aspect of how it reports back to the Prime Minister, etc., etc. But in amongst that, was a move that many people kind of view as the police trying to cover up this whole affair. Now, and what I'm talking about there is back in August, Sean, in the High Court, during those extradition hearings that are taking place where the FBI wants .com to be sent to the United States to face, charges. So in the court here in New Zealand, the defence lawyer asked the police, was there any other government agency involved in the planning of these operations, surveillance operations, and the operations against this internet tycoon? And the police said yes, and then they were asked, what was that organisation? And the police said, we're not going to tell you. And they said, why? And they said, because of the nature of the organisation. Then the question was put to the police, did it or any other group conduct surveillance? And the police said a categorical no. Now, what it's come to pass there is that was the head of the operation who replied that in court. And, of course, now we all know that, yes, the other agency did take part in the surveillance and that was illegal. And it appears on the face of that the police committed perjury potentially in the court. Now, what happened after that? This is all happening in August, and the public knew nothing really about what was going on. What the police did then is within a week they went to the acting Prime Minister of New Zealand and sought a suppression order that would prevent them from being able to reveal in the court that the GCSB had been surveilling. And the Deputy Prime Minister, who was the acting Prime Minister at the time, signed that to try and attempt to suppress that information. So it's a complex series of events, but there is many people that are calling for a very, very full independent inquiry into, one, the role of the police and the GCSB and the role of the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister in this whole affair, Sean.
So where can that end up? Does that mean that the Deputy Prime Minister can get into trouble? Does that mean that the head of the secret police is going to get into trouble? Or does it mean that this is all going to turn into turmoil and then there'll be a scapegoat put up and we'll all move on?
Yeah, the politicians have been moving to try and identify scapegoats all through this thing by saying things like the decisions for the GCSB to commit the illegal surveillance on Kim.com was made at a minor level. So they're trying to save the backs of those that are higher up the chain in themselves clearly in this. When it comes down to it, there's a question that New Zealanders are left wondering, and that is, was this whole affair incompetence or was it corruption? And those questions have yet to be answered. Whether or not there's an independent inquiry that looks into the role of the police thoroughly in this matter is still up for question. That has not yet been established. But the police have begun an investigation into themselves. Now, whether or not the outcome of that would satisfy the questions that the New Zealand public are demanding be answered is another question, Sean. And I guess, your own listeners would be thinking, yeah, well, an independent kind of set of eyes in these kind of circumstances certainly is beneficial, and that, I think, is the role and the view of the reasonably minded New Zealander as well, Sean.
That's kind of terrifying, because it must make New Zealanders wonder what else is going on underneath the skin that they don't know about.
Well, exactly. And the Prime Minister trying to actually cool this thing down and sending in his own person in his own department across to the spies to have a look at their processes, sent a review back that was made public yesterday. Now, within that, it detailed 55 other cases of the GSB that the Intelligence and Security Inspector, that Justice I talked about just before, will have to investigate to see whether or not the legality of those surveillance operations holds up. They already have established that there looks like 3 or more or 4 were illegal. So we're all left wondering, is this the tip of the iceberg? The other thing, just in summary, is that the Prime Minister here in New Zealand really is the only person that has oversight over the running of these agencies. He's the one that is in charge of the governance of the agencies. It does appear that his relaxed style of not wanting to get into too much detail type of approach has led to a culture of, unaccountability on behalf of the agencies. And that, in its sense, in a political sense, but also in the running of government and certainly in the security intelligence area, is one that is causing the deepest concern amongst many.
So just really quickly, because I'm running out of time, I've probably got about a minute left.
Yep.
.com, what's happened to them?
Kim.com's living in New Zealand. All his assets relating to Mega Upload, which was a huge international affair, that has all been seized by the FBI. He was basically put in prison, waiting trial for quite some time, Sean, but he's out on bail pending the outcome of these extradition cases. It does look like the Crown and the FBI are losing their cases in that regard.
And that would be because it's all saying look like they've actually done the wrong thing.
Yeah, it does.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was fascinating and really well explained.
Okay, mate.
You're amazing.
All the best.
Take care. Have a great day.